Can the best designer in F1 history fail miserably when most is expected of him? What is happening inside Aston Martin and its revolutionary car for 2026 will leave you speechless. Aston Martin's 2026 project is not just a natural evolution of a growing team. It is a deliberate and extremely expensive attempt to redefine their place in the Formula One hierarchy. The signing of Adrian Newey was just the tip of the iceberg of a much more ambitious strategy. Building the first super team, completely designed to dominate under a new technical regulation. The goal is not to compete. The goal is to reign. Lawrence Stroll is not playing. After several years investing hundreds of millions in infrastructure, including a new £400 million plus technology campus, state-of-the-art wind tunnels and state-of-the-art test beds, the Canadian businessman decided it was time to move from promises to deeds. For that I needed the best. And that best has a first and last name, Adrian Newey. Newey was not only hired as chief designer. At Aston Martin he has been given unprecedented power. Lead the technical project with total autonomy, become team director in 2026, and be the architect of the entire concept behind the car. What he is developing is not just another car, it is a new vision of how a modern team should operate under the budget limit. And he is doing this in parallel with an exclusive partnership with Honda, which guarantees him a unique technical package, something he did not have even in his best days at Red Bull. And there is still more. Along with Newey, came names that in another context would be headlines on their own. Enrico Cardiel, former technical director of Ferrari, and Marco Finello, the legend behind the simulators that led Michael Schumacher to win 5 consecutive titles at Ferrari. This technical triad Newey, Cardiel, Finello represents a concentration of technical talent rarely seen in the history of Formula One. Aston Martin doesn't just want to win races. His intention is to build a dynasty, becoming what Ferrari once was in the early 2000s or Red Bull in the hybrid era. And to do that they are rewriting all the fundamentals of their team from scratch, from the organizational structure through the simulation processes to the way in which mid-season updates are planned. They are not thinking of 2026 as an isolated goal, but as the beginning of a completely new era for the Silverstone team. Everything is designed to create a car that not only works within the new regulations, but exploits them to the fullest from day one. And in theory, there's no reason it shouldn't work. They have it all: money, talent, technology, and time. But as we will see later, time is precisely the resource that is already beginning to be scarce. And the first signs of tension are beginning to appear. Aston Martin Castle seems solid from the outside, but cracks are beginning to appear inside that threaten to collapse this entire ambitious project. When analyzing the development of a Formula One car under new technical regulations, the choice of suspension system is not simply a design decision. It is a structural and philosophical pillar. In the previous era, dominated by ground effect, teams adapted their suspensions to maximize the efficiency of Venturi tunnels, prioritizing vertical stability and aerodynamic rate control. But from 2026, with the return to flat floors and more conventional diffusers, this logic changes completely. In that context, what Adrian Newey did with Aston Martin could be understood as a bold move, but also extremely risky. A few days after the first private test, Newey had not yet decided whether the AMR26 would use a pushrod or pull rod suspension. This is not a simple mechanical choice, it is a statement of technical identity. Pull rod suspension, used by teams such as Ferrari until 2025, offers clear advantages in terms of mass distribution and center of gravity. By placing the heavier components closer to the ground, cornering stability is improved and the overall efficiency of the car is improved. But it has disadvantages. Its access is more complex for mechanics, and it partially compromises the aerodynamic flow towards the rear of the car, a factor that will be even more critical when the cars must generate load without the support of Venturi tunnels. On the other hand, the pushrod, traditionally easier to integrate from a maintenance point of view, offers better airflow management around the suspension triangles and greater flexibility in the architecture of the chassis and side pods. Most of the Red Bull, Racing Bulls, and Audi teams have opted for this solution in their initial concepts for 2026. Even Ferrari is abandoning its historic rear pull rod setup, a change they haven't made since 2010. And while the rest of the paddock had already defined this key piece of their cars, Aston Martin waited until the last moment. The problem with this delay is not only technical, but logistical. The suspension directly affects the design of the gearbox, the axle housing, the shape of the rear diffuser, and even the internal dimensions of the survival cell. If not defined sufficiently in advance, it forces multiple areas of the car to be redesigned simultaneously, in an environment where every day of production and simulation is critical. The most worrying thing is that this late decision was not due to lack of information. It was deliberate. Newey sought to explore every possible marginal advantage before committing to an architecture. But that perfectionism, in this case, could be compromising Aston Martin's ability to have a car ready and fully optimized from the first day of testing. What we will see in Barcelona, the so-called AMR 26 Spec 0.1, may not even remotely represent the potential of the definitive car. And if the first data on the track does not coincide with the theoretical projections, the team will be forced to make corrections on an already approved platform, with little room for maneuver due to budget limitations and technical regulations. In a scenario as competitive as the one expected in 2026, where every detail will make a difference, starting the season with a partially developed car is not a minor disadvantage. It is a frontal blow to championship aspirations. An error that, coming from a teacher like Newey, surprises and worries, because at this level, perfection is not the enemy of the good, it is the executioner of the possible. What does it mean that a simulator does not correlate? In simple terms, the data it provides does not accurately reflect what happens when the car runs on the track. This may be due to flaws in the aerodynamic model, errors in suspension physics, mismatches in the virtual engine response, or deficiencies in haptic feedback from the pilot's environment. The result is devastating. Any setup decision, aerodynamic package, or conceptual development that is based on that simulator has a very high probability of being incorrect. And in 2026, with a completely new regulation, there is no room for guesswork. There is no historical data on the new cars, nor previous telemetry that allows trends to be validated. Teams can only rely on two things: the correlation between wind tunnel and simulator, and the correlation between simulator and track. If one of these links fails, the entire development cycle falls apart. In this context, Marco Finello appears, a figure who is not only respected, but feared in the paddock for his ability to transform technical structures. Finello was responsible for leading the creation of the first Ferrari simulator in the 2000s, a technological revolution that allowed Michael Schumacher and the Maranello team to anticipate rule changes, adjust strategies with surgical precision, and consolidate an era of total dominance. After his time at Ferrari, he founded AdFer, a company specialized in predictive algorithms, AI applied to simulations and development of ultra-low latency virtual environments. But even someone with his experience faces a titanic challenge at Silverstone. Because Aston Martin's problem is not only technical, but structural. The team never developed an advanced simulation culture. For years, their digital tools lagged behind the top teams, and their jump in quality from 2020 to 2023 was more the result of aggressive signings and copying aerodynamic concepts than of internal evolution of their virtual processes. Newey caught on quickly. That is why he did not hesitate to also recruit Giles Wood, an old acquaintance from his days at McLaren and Red Bull, an expert in vehicle dynamics modeling. Wood and Finello's joint mission is ambitious. They must not only correct current errors, but design a new simulation architecture that will allow Aston Martin to build winning concepts for years. But there is one detail that cannot be ignored. Even in the best-case scenario, this process will take at least 2 years. And that means that the development of the AMR 26, and possibly the car of 2027, will be done largely blind, without the full support of a reliable virtual environment. In a sport where tenths of a second are calculated to the millimeter and simulations determine the strategy of each lap, this limitation is a silent condemnation. The most worrying thing is that, even if the car is competitive in 2026, the evolution during the season could be erratic. Updates may not work as expected. The configurations could generate unexpected behavior in fast corners or during prolonged braking. And any error on the track will be doubly costly, because there will not be a solid virtual environment that allows solutions to be tested in advance. In short, the problem with Honda is not simply that the engine is not ready. The fact is that its delay can compromise the entire Aston Martin project, from the chassis design to the ability to adapt in the race. A team can survive mistakes in aerodynamics. It can overcome late decisions in suspension. But you can't win championships with a faulty engine in a hybrid regulation. The RA626H is not just an engine. It is the heart of this entire revolution. And if that heart doesn't beat at the right pace, the entire project could collapse before it even begins. If Aston Martin achieves the miracle, this team could become the new absolute reference in the category. But if it fails, it won't just be a sporting defeat. It will be a lesson for the entire grid, that not even with the best designer, the most brilliant engineers, and a bottomless checkbook can you win, if the foundations are still unset. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.